right now. And just so you know, we record all of these, and in the emails that you get from me, you'll I'm trying to include a link that goes to the playlist with all of the pro-aging recordings since we started doing this. And it's hard to believe we've done close to 40 of these sessions since COVID-19, and we've had over, I think we're close to 5,000 attendees in total to all of these sessions. So, all right, well, welcome everybody. And I am going to just create the Brady Bunch scenario here with all of our panel members, and let's get to know them, and we will then begin our discussion. Let's see, Genice. Okay. Okay, so we just got to get Ralph on there. And then we will have our panel. Ralph, there's Ralph. Okay, great. Okay. All right, folks, this is our panel where we're going to be learning about the Oura Ring. We're going to be learning about how wearable and other technology can help our elders and help our organizations. And this is also going to relate to COVID-19 and monitoring in that area. I'm gonna go around and introduce all the panel members, and so we can get to know them. But I want to start with Ralph Sklar, because Ralph is not necessarily a professional in the field of aging. Ralph is a consumer. I met Ralph years ago when I co-founded a village in Reston for a Lifetime. And Ralph was one of the active community members, and he is definitely an asset to our community here in Reston, Virginia. And Ralph, tell me a little, you were the one who sort of did some research and brought this topic to my attention. And I was like, man, this would be a great session. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself. And then if you don't mind, tell us, what your goal has been in researching researching this topic. Whoops, I got to unmute you. There you go.
Thank you, Steve. Try again, second time. I actually first met you when you did the luncheons at the various senior homes in the area, and I was a senior provider offering Silver Learners courses for seniors.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And then I was developing a system based on cell phones to help keep seniors safe in their homes. The cell phone would actually look out for what a senior was doing. But when this illness came along, it really hit me hard. Seniors were basically making up about half of the deaths in the United States. It's been so horrendous, and I wanted to do something to help. Now, basically, I'm a techie. I have a PhD in physics. I looked around and did a lot of research and found things that started to make sense for how we can screen both the seniors, our residents, and people working with seniors so that we don't spread COVID from one person to the next and bring this death toll down. First and foremost, I read an article about the COVID ring and how the West Virginia University Rockefeller Neurological Institute found that using the Oura Ring, we can actually predict 3 days in advance symptoms from COVID. And that gives us an extra 3 days to isolate people, and an extra 3 days they won't be spreading it. And this was phenomenal. So I got in touch with Jeff, and the story goes on. I haven't stopped my research. There are other exciting things I will look forward to talking about in the future, but this is about the Oura Ring now.
Oh, thanks a lot, Ralph, and thank you. And so that's a great cue for us to get to know Jeff here. Jeff, tell us about yourself first, and just we're going to dive in deep on Oura Ring, but just give us the 1,000-foot view of your organization.
Okay, sure. My background is physiology and also technology, computer programmer. So been in this world since graduate school, many years. This technology was founded in Finland, where a lot of the heart rate technology comes from. Polar heart rate monitors, Suunto, Omega Wave, like there's quite a bit of technology coming out of Finland. And so this was that next generation of technology that was developed primarily for sleep tracking, including all the biometrics that is necessary to track sleep accurately. Turns out that those are the same metrics that can give advanced warning on COVID infection or other flu-like illnesses. So we also have an office in San Francisco that we're building out, and it's a global company, still considered startup stage, but we have raised quite a bit of money. So we are now in the growth phase of business. Yeah.
And where are you based right now?
Actually, I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh,
so the
okay.
weather's pretty good here too.
Great. Well, yeah, most of the time it is. Okay, great. Okay, so now I'm going to bring on Brian and Genice, and let's see here. Okay, and if the two of you just sort of take turns and introduce yourself, but tell us how you tie in with the Oura Ring and your organization.
Sure. So I'll start. I think because that thread will make a lot of sense. My wife and I recently bought the local franchise for Brightstar here in San Francisco and Marin County in California. Last November we did that. And I saw some folks from Visiting Angels and other things. Obviously different region, but home healthcare agency. And we had first heard about a home monitoring technology in January timeframe, and it's primarily motion sensors, door sensors, and the like, looking for fall risk and this sort of thing. And then we kind of had it on the back burner a bit. And then during the rest in place order, when that happened, shelter in place order with COVID, we saw about 10% revenue loss overnight, because more discretionary cases, as we call them, just kind of an hour or two a day, 3-4 days a week, checking in on an elder or loved one. People, just from an exposure perspective, didn't want to have someone in their home. And so I rapidly leaned in and reached out to my colleague Genice here. We worked together 6 years together at a technology startup here in Silicon Valley together. And said, hey, maybe we could build a business around this. Like Brightstar is not a technology company, but you're a technologist, so maybe we can do this at arm's length. And then we thought, boy, it'd be great if we got telemetry data somehow. And then I did some research, and we saw, oh, this Oura Ring is fantastic. It's got a 7-day battery life. It can hold, almost 2 months of data. So if we have an issue synchronizing, we got to catch up. And we thought the combination of those two things together could be really tremendous as it relates to our core franchise business, but also provide an extended amount of coverage and support for elders to age in place in their home where they want to be. And that's me. And then I'll just hand over to maybe Genice to connect.
Yeah, well, Brian kind of said it all. And what I really want to add is that, really excited to be part of this conversation today, because the more we engage with industry experts, the more we're able to improve our services. We always love to leverage the collective experience and wisdom of the community, which we have here, as we all have the same common goal.
Great. And So, and Janice, we were talking the other day, you're sort of referring to what you're doing in terms of using Oura Ring and some other monitoring devices with the BrightStar franchise as sort of a pilot project to see
Right.
the impact that this can make on the lives that and the clients of BrightStar. And so great. Well, we're looking forward to diving in deeper to what you've learned so far in that exercise.
Absolutely.
But let's switch back to Jeff, and panel members, feel free to jump in if you've got sort of comments or insights that you want to share, you know, when there's a pause, what have you. And attendees, feel free to or make sure that you use Q&A to either type in questions and comments that you have, or raise your hand, and we will bring you on. So Jeff, I want to move to you and back to you, and let's kind of like dive in deeper to the actual Oura Ring. Like, and can you sort of give us for lack of a better term, kind of like a product demo, like how it works and how much it costs? I know these are going to be the questions that everybody has.
Sure. So I can share my screen here.
Oh, that'd be great.
And let's see if I can do that.
And while you're doing that, I just want to remind the audience that in your upper right-hand corner, you have the option of a speaker view or a panel view. You can click around and see what your preferences are while Jeff is sharing his screen. I know that, and you can minimize our faces too. I know most of you guys are sick of looking at me, that's for sure. Oh, you know, probably I need to make sure that all panelists, okay, I've changed the settings, so you should be able to share now.
Okay.
Oh, and Judy, while you're doing this, Judy has a good question for you, Genice. What is Genice's company?
Oh, so I actually work with Brian. And it's very interesting because we're a new company, and so new that we don't actually have an official name yet.
Yeah.
But we actually have a contenders, which we'll share with you later on too. It's mebos.co. And what we do is we're focused on enabling our elders to live safely and comfortably in their homes longer. And when we came up with Mebos, it's really that we're supporting the mind, like body and spirit of our elders. So we kind of took like the first one or two letters of that to kind of create Mebos. So if you guys like that, put in the chat that you like it. If you think of a better name, put that in the chat too, and let us know.
And just to clarify, so this is Judy again. So Brian owns a BrightStar franchise and started another separate company with Genice. Is that kind of that's
Yes.
it? Okay, good. All right. Okay, so Jeff, we can see your screen. So tell us a little bit more about Oura.
All right, we'll do. So I'll start with the question, why do we use a ring instead of a traditional watch, for example, or a pendant, or there's lots of different wearable form factors out there on the market. Well, a little bit of the physiology, why we picked a ring. If you look at the top of the wrist, there's really no arterial blood flow. It's mostly capillary or venous, blood returning back to the heart. So one of the main features of the ring is we measure heart rate real time, and then heart rate variability, and you can really understand a lot of physiology, a lot of the body, if you really look at the heart blood flow. And so to get the best blood flow signal, we chose a finger because each finger has two arteries. So, when you go into the hospital and they're measuring pulse or blood oxygen, it goes on your finger. They don't put it on your wrist. So the finger has a great arterial blood flow direct from the heart signal. That allows a couple different additional benefits. One is it's a really strong signal. And so that allows us to extend the battery life because we don't have to turn up the intensity of those LED sensors is high. We have about 100 times stronger pulse signal on the finger versus the wrist. So that's Brian mentioned earlier why that's one of the benefits is that you just charge it once a week. That also gives us really accurate heart rate. So a correlation of 0.99 compared to electrical heart rate with electrodes. And then there's also heart rate variability, which is a metric used by cardiologists and sports physiologists. And it's an additional insight into your nervous system status or health. So it's really the time between each heartbeat. And it sounds strange, but you can derive a lot of additional information from that. It's called heart rate variability. And also from that, we can get respiration rate. So this next slide, if I can go to the next slide, gets into the technical specifications. So again, the battery life lasts up to a week with one charge. And wireless charging, so you put it on a wireless charging dock. I don't know, can you see my video? Not really.
Yeah, okay.
You just set it on a little pad and it charges it. It's waterproof. It says water resistant to at least 100 meters. So for all practical purposes, it's waterproof. 6 weeks of storage. It's titanium, so it's really durable. And it's thin, a little bit thicker than a normal wedding band, but I wear mine as a wedding band, and many people do. Very lightweight. It's lighter than a wedding band, 4 grams. And then it connects to a phone through Bluetooth. So in the morning when you wake up, you just open up your app on your phone and it automatically downloads and tells you how you slept that night, along with lots of other information. So let me go to the next slide.
And actually, while you're going to the next slide, I'm really psyched that Juan put in Q&A. I've been wearing an Oura Ring for almost a year now. Big fan, highly recommend. Intrigued about usage for seniors as it seems to be primarily aimed at sleep monitoring, meaning middle-aged folks like me trying to stay young. So I know we're going to dive in deep on that here in this session, but Juan, maybe later on we can bring you on and you can sort of share more details of what it's like using the Oura Ring.
All right. So yeah, Juan, you might add some additional feedback here, but I'll go through the sensors and then we can go to, what we can measure beyond sleep. So here's the sensors and I'll try to keep it high level. I know this is a little bit techie, but we use these infrared LEDs. So infrared, you can't see the light. In many of these wearable devices, like this watch, for example, when it's measuring your heart rate, it uses green light. Green light is really good for measuring it during the day and when there's a lot of motion, but it takes a lot of power, and also it will keep you awake at night. So infrared penetrates much deeper, but it's also invisible. We've also got 3D accelerometers, so it measures movements, really subtle movements when you're sleeping, for example, if you're restless or when you wake up. It measures motion during the day as well. And then this is really an unintended benefit that we have just recently found is that we've got 3 temperature sensors on the ring also in 3 different locations. And we measure temperature continuously 24 hours a day. But at night, it's a really good, stable temperature environment. And we're able to build a baseline. What's your average temperature, your normal temperature? And then in the morning, we show, did your temperature vary? Did it drop a little bit, or did it rise a little bit compared to your normal temperature in your normal environment? And then this is where it gets interesting, is now that we've got all this information, I'm going to go to a really busy slide here. And this
And
is where
I know we're going to get a request for this, but would you be able to sort of send me these slides and I could share them with the audience after the meeting?
You bet. I can send all the technical slides. This one is in progress, and it's the property of University of California, San Francisco.
Okay.
But I'll share the other ones. Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so this is what we're seeing, is that we've heard from users like Juan over the past couple of years that, wow, the Ring has showed I had a fever. It knew I was sick. And so we've always known that this was a potential benefit of the Ring beyond just a sleep tracker. But when COVID hit, we really, we partnered with, as Ralph mentioned, West Virginia University, Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute, and University of California, San Francisco, and then a lot of different California hospital systems. So with that, we distributed over 3,000 rings to frontline healthcare workers who had a higher risk of contracting COVID. And they've all agreed to share their data from the Ring. And then also when they were diagnosed and had a positive COVID analysis and infection. And so what we were able to do is connect those that had COVID, and we looked at their data several weeks before. And that's where the latest article from West Virginia, excuse me, I don't think I have COVID, but at least we're all very distant. I have a frog in my throat. So they were able to see with a 3-day warning with their algorithm that they were going to contract COVID in the next 3 days, or at least have those physical symptoms. So it does give us up to a 5-day warning as well. And so we've got several different agencies. We're sharing our data with West Virginia University, University of California, and then also internally. So, and also just recently the Navy and Air Force started pilot projects. And so there's 5 different agencies working on an algorithm to see which combination of signals are the best to detect COVID. And it looks like we can identify regular flu, H1N1, and compared to COVID, those biosignals look quite a bit different. So really interesting. And then also at the end of these pilots, we've all agreed for data sharing to pool all of the data together to see if we can come up with an even better algorithm. So Oura, as a philosophy, is started with sharing all of their data. We've shared that with researchers, with individuals. If you request it, you can go on to our cloud on the back end and download all of your raw data, which is unique in the wearables market. Fitbit, Garmin, Polar does not allow you to do that. So maybe one more slide. This top line, B and C, is a COVID. This is what COVID looks like. On the bottom is flu. So you can see just by the pattern, we've got red is higher temperature, blue is lower temperature. This axis is heart rate variability, which some of you may be familiar with. And then this one, heart rate, we are all familiar with. So as your heart rate rises, the red, the temperature rises, and your heart rate variability drops. So up here in the top left corner is you're not feeling good right there. And then you can see that this pattern over time, over the days, it's got a little bit different pattern over time than the normal flu. You can see this. And then we do additional analysis like frequency of it. We're not just looking at heart rate variability, respiration rate, and temperature. We look at also the frequency changes, meaning normally your temperature drops when you fall asleep because melatonin is released and your temperature dips just a little bit. But when you're sick, your temperature just stays straight. It doesn't fluctuate based on your environment. It's just you've got this internal infection that's causing your temperature to rise. Same with your heart rate, same with your breathing rate. So that's when the frequency analysis, a lot of algorithms on the back end help determine if you're ill. Okay, so that's everything in a nutshell. I don't know if I overshared that, but
No, I mean, I thought that was fascinating. And again, trust me, because the questions are starting to come in, the audience will fill in any gaps and let you know, elements. But so on a high level, it's conceptual that we're going to be, that this data can be predictive, whether it be flu or COVID, that, oh geez, these triggers are happening, Steve. You may be coming down with the flu. I can't imagine anything better than that, to sort of to have an advanced warning that I might be getting sick. So
right. Well, it's really leapfrogged the wearables from these fitness and wellness devices. How did I sleep? How do I, when I work out, to a true health device? Like, it's completely shifted the wearables market to something. Frankly, it's more useful. Before it was more, a convenience to fine tune your. This is the basic core of health monitoring.
Well, and also just imagine that annual physical that we go to with our doctor, where he or she stick a stethoscope and check our breathing at that point in time. Imagine if your doctor was able to study a year's worth of data in advance of you walking into the office for the physical. That's a true physical versus what our current model is right now. So fascinating. This is amazing. So I want to jump back to Ralph and Jenice and Brian, but let's address a few questions that came in. It's would neuropathy hinder the results of the ring?
Good question. Most likely not. Neuropathy would be a local neurological in the finger. And we're looking at a pulse, blood flow through the arteries. And really it's looking at something that's more core versus peripheral. So there's no scientific backing that I can give, but I would guess with the heart rate, no. Heart rate variability, no. Temperature, potentially. With neuropathy, you could get. However, we look at your temperature deviation from your baseline. So if you've got your standard baseline and it learns your baseline over time, it's a 90-day rolling baseline that we use. So it would still detect any variation from your normal neuropathy baseline. So I would say minimal effect. Yeah.
Steve, I'd just like to jump in and dampen your spirits a little bit on your scenario. To use this data for your doctor, you need FDA approval.
Oh yeah, no, and again, I understand that we are not quite there yet, but I think with with what Jeff's talking about and the fact that this could be used for predictive in health issues, this is a huge step towards that sea change from these wearables being viewed as something that a doctor could monitor and what have you. But
we're careful with all the fitness devices, Fitbit and even Apple are not FDA, except for maybe an Apple algorithm for AFib, but it's illness risk is what we're looking at right now. And so you can share your heart rate files with your doctor, even though that heart rate device is considered a fitness. In fact, it's a recreational device, but sharing that data, and the doctor has to do the diagnosis. But totally agree, Ralph.
Okay.
We're really careful. We're not FDA approved or cleared yet. However, we do have a partner. It's a fertility tracking app. It's the only fertility tracking app that is FDA cleared. And they have done a pilot study using the Ring and have shown that the Ring is accurate enough to get FDA clearance for their app. So they'll be using the temperature from the Ring for an FDA cleared fertility tracking app. So
wow, what a great application. And those who have gone through fertility issues, I could see where that could be extremely valuable. All right, Jeff, I'm gonna jump to back to Brian and Genice, but you've got a bunch of questions that have come in. Just look in the Q&A just to familiarize yourself with those questions, and
okay.
We'll come back to you and we'll answer those. Okay, so now let's come back to Brian and Genice, and here and let's Jeff, maybe unshare your screen and then we can get okay, so Brian and Genice, so let's talk about your pilot project. How far into it are you? How's it going? How are you using Ring, and what other devices are you using, and are you seeing any results?
Sure. Maybe I'll give a quick overview of what pilots we have, and then Genice, if you want to talk about the learnings and the stories and such. We could screen share and tell a little bit more about the company if you want us to at some point, or we can jump right in. What would you prefer?
Let's jump in and then screen share if a question comes up, or if you feel like a screen share will help you better communicate to the audience, then by all means do it.
Okay. Well, I'll just maybe talk about the pilot. The idea was, as we're a Brightstar franchisee, it was really great to be able to do this in concert with the business that Genice has stood up in short order here. Again, so fast that she secured venture financing and is moving forward with what's now 6 pilots before we even have a name. But that said, it's we're live in 3 people's homes, but there's 4 people wearing the Ring. And in all 4 cases, we have some really interesting stories already that have developed around prediction of a person that was ended up going to the hospital a few days later, temperature alarms, an issue with a bathroom overstay, some things like that we'll get into. But the real goal of the business is similar to what Brightstar's mission is, of enabling the elderly primarily to safely and comfortably live in their homes for longer. And the way we get to that, as opposed to sending people into the home, is to provide coverage 24/7, right? And that coverage really comes first from sensors, motion sensors, and door sensors. And the way to think of it, I think, is it's like a home security system, but instead of looking for people coming into your home and moving around in it, it's really just monitoring the movement inside the home. there's movement into the bathroom and the number of times the bathroom visit occurs. If there's several bathroom visits that happen at night, perhaps that's a deviation from baseline, similar to what Jeff mentioned. Or if there's a lot of movement in the bedroom that would signal poor sleep quality. These are all signals that are predictive that maybe something might be coming on. And so in line with what Jeff said, with the data that comes from the Oura Ring, other data like motion data gives you a sense that maybe you're off track to your standard. But then coupling that information with what we get from the Oura Ring, I've got here, is, we use the Teams app within the Oura platform to say we're a virtual coach, basically, and each of the people we're monitoring we have on our team. And so periodically through the day, we monitor the data with and observe sort of trending and what that trending might tell us. And Genice will share a story from the trending. I think this is a good time maybe to hand over to you.
Yeah, and I also have the Oura Ring here too. So in one of our pilots, we noticed that when we're monitoring like the Oura data, and usually like the resting heart rate's usually when you're sleeping about like 50s or 60s. And this one particular day, we noticed it was like 105. Well, that is concerning. And so we're like, what is going on? And utilizing that data, in addition to that, thank you, Brian, and the activity data, we were like trying to figure out what's going on, right? So it's elevated. And by looking at the activity data, we saw that there was activity when there shouldn't be activity. Like this was during the middle of the night, and that's on the left-hand side, where she should be sleeping. And so when we saw that, and this is a pilot that we were in partnership with Brightstar, so we notified the director of nursing over at Brightstar of this. And so what she did is called, and let's just say our client's name is Betty. Let's just say this pilot's Betty, and gave her a call and said, hey, Betty, it looks like, your heart rate's a little bit higher than normal. Are you feeling okay? And so Betty then says, oh my God, I've been super anxious lately. I have so much fear, and I have like these negative thoughts that if I go to sleep, I'm not going to wake up. And so the director of nursing was able to counsel her and give her some exercises, see if we can calm the nervous system so she can sleep. And if not, they were going to come out the following day. So this says a lot too, like if we're able to capture that early on and intervene, because if we weren't monitoring and give that piece of information to Brightstar, they would not have known, would have known to call. And this could have gone on for days. And many days of anxiety and not sleeping, could cause something more serious, perhaps like a heart attack or stroke, or if they're not sleeping, higher probability that they could slip and fall, right? So it was very interesting to us because the technology alone, like if we just use the activity sensors, it's definitely just a lot more like reactive. But the combination of both makes it exponentially more valuable because we're able to utilize both in combination, right? Seeing the higher heart rate, and then also, being able to look through like the activity during that time gives us like a better picture and insight of what's going on. And so in addition to that too, this happened on a Tuesday. And on a Saturday, we noticed, because we have sensors also on the doors, that there was a night exit, which is out of routine. And since we're already concerned because we know of like the higher heart rate and she hasn't been sleeping, we notified Brightstar again and let them know like, hey, there is a night exit, something maybe to look into. So again, the director of nursing calls Betty, and it turns out that she was coughing up blood. And the exit was that she was on her way to the hospital. What did you think the director of nursing was thinking about that time when you heard that? Especially the time we are in today, right? Yeah. And so, of course, she thought, oh my gosh, could she be positive for COVID-19? Yeah. But having that information early on, she was able to take quick action and notify the caregivers who were giving Betty the care, so they can self-quarantine, and also to not be visiting other of their clients' homes. And if she was to be positive, we could have prevented a bigger spread, which is huge, which is really huge in our minds. And fortunately, she tested negative for COVID-19, but she did, unfortunately, had pneumonia. So had we better understood the Oura data, and because this is like early on in our pilot, perhaps we could intervene earlier for the pneumonia. But even from what we were able to get in terms of the data we were able to understand, I think we made a huge impact already.
Well, and just out of curiosity, it sounds like this was not a 24-hour live-in client with BrightStar, correct? So
That's
she
right.
alone? Okay. So what I love about this concept, and this is the challenge that all of us as home care providers go through, is that unless it's a 24-hour live-in situation, the client is unsupervised at periods of time throughout the week. And Genice, what your service is illustrating is how you can have a level of monitoring to understand what's going on. I mean, it could have been days before BrightStar knew if there was a gap of several days before a caregiver was coming in. It's sort of like she's in the hospital and you might have not even known it. This is fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
There's another, this is a funny story because it has such a positive end to it. So we give, each pilot client has a alias. BSMRC2 is this one. BSMRC4 is this other woman. We'll just say, let's call her name Mary. So Mary, she gets going on this early onset Alzheimer's. We know the family. The family said, hey, let's do this test and see how mom's doing. She's alone, lives alone in Sausalito. And so we go and we give her the ring and get it set up and get the motion sensors in there. And we get a bathroom overstay alert the very first night. She's been in the bathroom for 2 hours. And we're thinking, oh my gosh, did this happen the very first day? There was a fall in the bathroom or something. Or, so we called the daughter. The daughter calls mom because she was not yet a BrightStar client. She is now as a result of this, interestingly enough. But turns out that she likes to take 2-hour baths every single night. And so we had to reset the alert trigger for her because of this. But the point is having that visibility and insight when she was home alone, and most, I don't know the exact percentage of them, but the majority of falls in the home happen in the bathroom, slippery floor, getting in and out of the bathtub and whatnot. So that's an example of an alarm that went off that was a false alarm, but really a great sort of data point to have information into. And I just also like to say, to the great sort of analytics and analysis that Jeff's company is doing, to Genice's point, if we were there and saw this data, for this, what's up in front of you there, 3 days early, say, hey, this could be a signal that something's coming on. Why don't you go, maybe call the doctor? It might be worthwhile. And to, early intervention for pneumonia would be great. 3 days earlier, right? It's pretty amazing. So there you have it.
This is great. And I want to direct everybody's attention to the Q&A. Jeff has been typing fast and furious and answering many of the questions that you guys are throwing in. Jeff, I want to go back to you, but before I do that, I just want to check in with Ralph and give you the opportunity, because you're the guy that put all this stuff together for us. Ralph, any insights that you want to share before we kind of jump back to Jeff and try to answer some of these questions?
I see we're going to be running out of time, so I wanted to make sure that people understand if they're interested in going forward with trying the Oura Ring, it would behoove the community if we can do this in a coordinated way. There are price breaks for volume, and there are tremendous benefits if we can share the lessons learned.
I'm glad you brought that up, Ralph, and that does relate to some of the questions that have been going in to the comments. First off, I just glanced over and I saw that one was asking, how could we become a potential pilot partner with Genice? Number one, we will definitely share contact info. So I'm assuming that if they just reach out to you, Genice, that you can determine if it's a match and an ideal partner for you to pilot with.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, too, if you guys are looking at the screen share too, we put our website on there so we could stay in touch. And feel free to put in your email. We'll keep you up-to-date status. And there's also like a question box. So you can either email us directly or put your information in there if you want to pilot together, and we'll reach out to you and for a call. And also too, if you guys have your phone, another way, rather than just typing out mebos.co, you can also use your phone and put it on the camera and face it to the QR code. It'll also take you to the website. So we thought that would make it easier for you guys.
Oh, that's great. Excellent. And I really am glad that Ralph brought up the price break and the value of us working together as a community, because as I've said many times, I've seen COVID has brought us together as a provider group in ways that we've never come together. And, some of these ideas that we're presenting here, if you're interested with your organization and sort of trying something, if we can create a collaboration of multiple organizations, there may be price breaks, but even if it's just the exchange of data and just having additional users, that would be great. Let's jump back to Jeff, because there's tons of questions here, and we'll do our best to get through these in the next 10 to 15 minutes. And Jeff, thanks for typing in so many of the responses. Do you want to kind of just give a Cliff Notes version of some of the responses that you have typed in, and then I can start reading some of the ones that you haven't answered?
Sure. As I answered them, they disappeared. So hopefully I can remember what I.
Here. I can.
I think the biggest, broadest question.
There is another tab. I found this hard way after you answered.
Oh, got it.
Open, answered, and dismissed.
Thanks,
yeah.
Brian. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, sorry.
Well, let's see. How do you size the ring for individual wear? Does arthritis interfere with it? It's better to have it tighter on the finger, so swollen joints may interfere with that. The ring can be worn on any finger, so you can try sizing kits for the ring on all fingers.
So here's the sizing kit. You get this before, so these are just plastic rings, an exact replica of all 8 sizes. And so you can put it on different fingers, the different hand, and try the best combination. But you do want to get the tightest fit. And we all, contract and swell throughout the 24-hour period. So mine is pretty snug all the time. In fact, I need to put water on it to pull it off in the morning. But and I do wear one ring just during the night. We have like a test app internal, and then I have like a wedding band that I have on during the day all the time. So this ring I only use at night. So some people may just want to use it at night, because that's really where you get the best data, really good baseline.
And then obviously I knew there would be questions on pricing, and you commented the ring retail price is $299. We do not offer the service monitoring of illness yet, but we're piloting it with several enterprise companies and government agencies. And again, I guess this is where there's probably, I'm assuming that if a home care agency or a senior living community was buying in bulk, there would probably be some price breaks or working with Genice's company.
Yes. Brian and Genice are wholesale purchasers of the ring, and so they can acquire the rings and do the monitoring. Right now, they do have access to our back-end dashboard where they can monitor multiple people at the same time, and they know what they're looking for in terms of which biometrics, heart rate variability, temperature, respiration rate. So they, like a health expert, can look at that now and detect many of the things that our algorithm will automatically detect in the future. But right now, we are just in the middle of collecting all this data to try to, at some point, automate that detection. But
yeah, from our standpoint in this pilot phase, as Jeff mentioned, we bought in advance, I think, 25 or 30 rings of various sizes. And the best way that we thought to scale this is, we'll get 10 unpaid, completely free pilots out there with the intention of learning and processing and delivering sort of value to the partner. So for us, for these first ones, the ring is free, and as well as the monitoring solution. We just need help. Obviously most of you are East Coast, so need someone savvy enough to be able to install it. It's a very simple process, but that's part of the learning.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like about this collaboration, and it relates, I urge everybody to sort of look through the answered questions. There's some good questions and good answers there. But I think one of the themes that I'm sort of seeing is we've got this technology, but then Genice and Brian, they're taking this technology to the next level in sort of manually monitoring it for you. And that's where the magic happens. That's where, if you've got somebody, an organization with a platform that is able to see this predictive data and sort of draw attention to it, that's what us as consumers may not be able to do on our own with ourselves, or more importantly, our loved ones.
Can I riff on that for just a sec, Steve?
Yes.
So one of the tenets of the company, and if I could, I just want to share one more time. There's one slide that we had kind of prepared that I think will very much speak to that. And this slide here, there's this problem that exists between what we say the adult child. I know from Brightstar, and I'm sure the other folks from other home healthcare agencies know this to be true as well, that typically the decision maker for services associated with our loved one or elder is a 47-year-old female. More often than not, that's who the decision falls to. And so what's happening at that time frame in a person's life, it's restrictions on time. Do you have the time, because you have so many things in life going on? Maybe you have kids, maybe you're working yourself. There starts to get this guilt side of, am I really spending enough time keeping mom or dad safe? And that causes a lot of anxiety. And then there also begins to have this big tension between that adult child and the person that wants to stay in their home, right? And then the alternatives get very, very costly, right? I mean, even home healthcare, having someone come in, 2 or 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, starts to really add up. And then for the elder, they're fearful and they're anxious, especially now in the day of COVID. Like, how do we get coverage and safety and security? Everything's becoming more complex. And that speaks to what you were saying a moment ago, Steve. What am I looking for? A temperature deviation? A what? I'm sorry, who, how? And then having the confidence to know, I can say there's one of our pilots, clients, she says almost every time how much appreciation she has just to know someone's watching, to know that someone's monitoring and keeping an eye on this, and just to let them know. And I think that this little balance right here is so critical in the dynamic that we're in, right? Because it's multiple parties.
Hey, this is awesome, Brian. And Jeff. Jeff's got to jump off. We can keep the discussion going, and we'll go through some questions and kind of wrap things up. But Jeff, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to, number one, thank you. You did a great job of describing this very quickly and succinctly. But any sort of closing remarks as you jump off to your next meeting?
I think our next phase is really looking at ethical concerns on data privacy. We're Finnish-based, very data privacy concerned. I think with COVID, people are willing to relax their own personal privacy a little bit right now, but what happens when COVID is hopefully behind us in the near midterm? And so I think we're really having some big internal discussions on how much data can we share? Do we want to allow, let's say, an employer to monitor their employees' health and tell them they can't come into the office? Or what if they just fire them? Or, you can look at other signals like pregnancy or if someone's drinking a lot. So these are ethical questions that we're sorting through right now.
Wow. Man, it's hard enough starting a business and creating this innovative technology, but then you got to worry about all that stuff. It's
could be used for evil too, right? It's being used for good, I think, most of the time, but
yeah.
You just need to, put boundaries so that you can ensure, at least hope that it will be used for the right reasons.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. And for the audience, I'll share the contact info for Oura. So if people want to dive in deeper, that they can get that info from you.
Okay, great. And yeah, I think Brian and Genice are our partners for this this area that we really want to explore and build out. And we don't have the internal resources to do that, but we are providing the platform and the data pipeline, pushing that data to them. So we're hoping to, see how that works out. So anyone who wants to participate, I'd encourage that.
Okay, great. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Okay.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, Ralph. Oh, you were just waving goodbye. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the this is this is for Genice and for anybody on the panel. Do we know if it's trackable, if it's lost? Like if you misplaced your ring?
No.
It's not trackable.
It's not trackable. And a couple of the other comments that came up is, elders often have enlarged joints. So in a few cases, trying to find the right finger that you can get it over the knuckle and still have it be valuable is not valuable, be capture the data is a little tricky. And with some elders as well, it's less invasive than other wearables that like strap on the arm or, as a watch kind of a format. But compliance is a little tricky sometimes. If people don't really want to wear them, that is a little bit challenging sometimes. But in conjunction with, I saw the gentleman from IC Med is on, I think. So there's an example of, it's a HIPAA compliant video chat capability. With this, we actually found it was easier to get an Android LTE tablet to synchronize with the Ring, as opposed to going to their house trying to, what's your app store login to download that doesn't work very well. So we actually give them a tablet that is LTE connected. And that tablet, can also, there's a question about pulse ox. We have a nice little pulse oximeter also that can plug into the tablet, so you can get pulse ox as well. And part of the strategy of the company is to interface with as many wearable and or sensors as possible, right? Because we think that the more sensors, the more modalities, the more information that can be captured, the more intelligence, as Genice said earlier, can be overlaid on top of that. If you can get motion sensing data and sleep data and heart rate data and breathing data and all these different things together, can really give us just that much better of kind of a warm blanket of comfort and security around folks, non-invasively.
Yeah, and we're pretty agnostic to tech. So like we're looking always for the best that's out there that can give us the information and the insights that we need to to do this well. And then one thing I would say about the Oura Ring too, I mean, it's not trackable yet, but maybe it could one day. But also too, it lasts like 7 days with between charging. So that's actually quite a long time. And also too, it stores about 6 weeks of data. So even if for one reason or another, it doesn't sync for a while, the data is still in the ring. So once it syncs, we get all that data that's in there.
Yeah. But the benefit of this collaboration in your organization is that somebody who doesn't charge their ring, doesn't do something, it's going to alert you. So you're going to reach out. Whereas if I just happen to buy the Oura Ring and I am not necessarily checking things, I may forget that it's not charged. I'm glad you brought up the tech agnostic viewpoint that your company has, because I know that's something that Ralph is very passionate about. Is let's just use the best stuff that's out there. But the other thing that I'm really intrigued by, and I really sort of see as the next level of home care provider, is that, we might look at these prices and it's like, oh my gosh, $300 for a ring and a tablet. And I imagine there are some costs that BrightStar is passing to the customer, but I think it's important for people to realize that if you've got around the clock care, that costs a lot of money. And so what you can see is by utilizing this tech, it can cut down on the number of days that you may have an actual person there providing you with personal care, but you are covered, I like the analogy, by this warm blanket 24/7 using this tech. And that's saving the customer thousands and thousands of dollars if you compared it to 24/7 live-in care.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And the other side that some folks have said is it's almost like an arc of decline, right? At the later stages, it might be hospice or palliative care, but before that, it's 24/7 nursing care. And before that, it's 24/7 monitoring with maybe a nurse visiting. And before that, it's like we've talked about, 2 or 3 hours a day, several days a week. But during those gaps, that's where the risk is at. We at BrightStar had a gentleman that fell and was on his living room floor, and that happened to be an hour before we had a scheduled visit occur, right? And it was just, it was strangely good fortune in that regard. But that's the sort of thing that, had that happened 2 hours after, it might have been a day and a half. I can share that, sadly, my dad, I'll share, 15 years ago, he, stubborn old, Irish Montana guy, right? He was in Chicago near me, two miles away on a Saturday night, and experienced a heart attack, and over the next 2 days was home in his apartment. And he's, I got a flu bug. And it took, slowly his heart, his chest cavity filled up with fluid, and he lost him a day and a half later. And I only found out because he was supposed to come watch his grandkids that morning and didn't show up. And it's something like this would have absolutely changed that outcome. I don't know exactly what, but he was there, like I said, for almost 2 days after that heart attack. And he was just stubborn as anybody, and just heartburn. I can just imagine him. And he actually wrote it in his journal the Sunday morning. He's like, I had this terrible pain in my chest last night, blah, blah, blah. And I just think about, this sort of technology, albeit not overly complex, but someone watching. And also the shift of responsibility and the peace of mind to that adult child that says, hey, I know that someone's watching, Mom, and I don't have to keep my phone up and check it every 2 hours. Like that's stress, that burden is substantial. And so you can offset the cost for a period of time, because eventually, people decline. That's part of the process. But this allows you to offset that and still gain that comfort and confidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, great, great. Let me just run through these last comments and then we'll wrap things up. What about the medication impact on readings? Well, I think that's where, again, you would see changes, and one of the questions that your team would ask is, has there been changes in medication that could impact that?
Absolutely,
let's
and
see.
we're monitoring the trend too, so we would be able to see that.
Donna Blackwell says, does it set off an alarm automatically, or does it require a person to be watching the data? And we've answered that yes, it requires somebody to monitor it. And I think we could draw the analogy to your financial planner. It's sort of like, we don't sit there, most of us don't sit there and watch our investments go up and down and up and down, but our financial planner does, and basically signals buys and sells, and we should do something. And then the last one is Judy Tiger says, would be great if the Ring could manage to have a tiny tracker so the phone or tablet could beep or light up. And yeah, I agree, and that may be, like Genice said, that may be something that happens down the road. Whew, boy, what a great topic. And I'm glad we recorded this, because I think in hindsight, I may have named this session something different. That, this is truly sort of reinventing the way that we are delivering home-based and senior living care, utilizing a variety of technology. And I want to thank you all, but I especially want to thank Ralph, because without you sort of doing this research, there's no way this would have come together. And I'd like to also sort of throw that out as encouragement to the audience, that if you've got an idea, run it by me, because like I said, we've never seen this type of collaboration in our field. And I think putting good ideas out there and figuring out how we can take advantage of them as a community is going to be very beneficial. So
may I just say thank you, Steve, for putting this on, and that there's even more astonishing technology for next time.
All right. Well, so you hear that, guys? Let's get ready for the next Ralph-inspired meeting. I'm really excited about that. Janice and Brian, again, thanks a lot, and enjoy your early morning there in sunny California. And we'll be talking to everybody later.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
You bet.